Good morning, folks. John Havlicek here with another version of Common Grounds, where we try to find common ground by looking at the news that really I think all of us need to be interested in, that we need to keep on our radar, okay, particularly here in Wisconsin. Okay, so I've got just a few updates for you from late last week and over the weekend. So I'm going to jump right in. Josh Kaul, the Wisconsin Attorney General, has announced that he is not running for governor. He probably would have been the favorite, or at least one of the favorites, but he's going to run for Attorney General again. And I think that's probably a good thing, that he's going to be Attorney General anyway, because he's kind of a bulldog. He has really been trying to hold people accountable for their actions. In particular, there's a case that he's been working on now for a couple of years that's still moving forward. He's not letting it drop, to hold accountable people like Kenneth Chesebro, who tried to overturn the results of the 2020 election. If you remember that whole thing with the fake electors and stuff like that. So Attorney General Kaul is still working on that case and it's still moving forward. So good for him and best of luck. Then the Wisconsin Supreme Court is hearing a case as to whether or not they should appoint a 3-judge panel to consider the congressional districts here in Wisconsin. Now, they would not hear the actual thing on the districts, but simply rather whether or not they should appoint a panel to hear that. Of course, the Democrats are saying this is, the congressional districts are heavily skewed and so forth, and the Republicans are like, no, they're fair. But either way, kind of our common ground there, I think, is we should have fair elections. Right? Politicians should not be able to choose their voters. Okay. Number 3, Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson has joined other U.S. Senate Republicans in sending a letter to the FDA asking that they restrict the telehealth prescription of mifepristone, which is, as I'm sure you know, one of the 2 drugs used in medication abortions, which are the vast majority of all abortions in the country. And so what they're trying to do, I suspect, is trying to restrict access in states that already heavily restrict access to needed health care for a lot of women. It's a very safe, widely used medication. And so I think, we need to maybe contact Ron Johnson and say, knock it off. Okay? You're not a doctor. Let's trust the doctors on this one. And then finally, Derek Van Orden is in the news again. He's saying that, we need to fix this immigration enforcement as regarding the agricultural workers. And a quote here, if we don't retain our agricultural labor workforce, our farms are going to close. It's almost as if somebody might have foreseen that coming. And then, of course, he goes on to talk about how he's kind of pushing back against his Republican colleagues, and they don't like him because he's fighting for agricultural workers and farms and stuff. So he's trying to portray himself as a maverick, which I'm sure he's trying to do to run away from his abysmal voting record. Now, maybe the common ground here is, yes, we can't harass, imprison, deport, all these agricultural workers who are simply here trying to have a job and live their lives. Whether or not they have some out of sync paperwork or something, or the paperwork hasn't worked its way through the system, is really just like that's not what we should be focusing on. Okay. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. And make sure that, if and when he has some public town halls, you bring this up. Like, what are you doing to help family farmers, rural Wisconsin, whom he represents? All right. So that's this morning's update with Common Ground. Have a good day.